So these stats are taken from 2020, and the cloud infrastructure spending has increased enormously. And obviously you'd have to be living under a rock to not know a sort of recent events with regards to COVID, and that's again accelerated the need for cloud technology in the workspace. So things like Microsoft Teams, things like M365 cloud solutions, cloud SaaS solutions, I should say, have become really prevalent in the marketplace in order to offer the same working experience from home as you would have in the office. So actually these were Q2 stats, so these won't have been impacted as much as the latter months of last year. So up to 30 billion, huge spending in public cloud for infrastructure and platform services. Main benefit to ISVs is around efficiencies in terms of cost of operations and delivery, which we'll cover later on. But additionally, there is a huge appetite for cloud solutions within the marketplace, and obviously those plug-and-play solutions that people can use safely and securely from home. Additionally to this, as Microsoft released their latest annual accounts, so for Q1 of FY21, which is essentially the last 3 months of last year, their Azure spending revenue was up to 13 billion, so 20% up. And then server products and cloud services revenue increased by 22%. And then the global Azure revenue grew by up to 48%, so nearly 50% increase in Azure spending last year alone. So that gives a sort of an indication of where the market is going, where your customers are going in terms of what they expect from the applications that they use and the technology providers that they use. It's very much focused on the cloud. It's only going to continue. So we've covered this before, but migration is only the first step. So the key message here is sort of getting yourself into the cloud and offering a cloud-based solution or a cloud-based platform, whether that's PaaS or SaaS functionality for your customers, is becoming a little bit of par for the course. It's becoming an expectation within the marketplace. And obviously 75% of enterprises will be using public cloud, whether that's their own internal applications and systems, or it is SaaS based platforms that are running on the public cloud. But the next step in terms of moving forward is by 2022, customers will be looking to innovate in terms of the ways that they use applications. So over 60% of customers will be looking to use applications that are AI enabled. And what that essentially means is being able to get intelligence on how their users are using applications, data on sort of working patterns and processes with regards to those applications, and being able to get that from the application itself. So being able to increase operational efficiency by reducing sort of bandwidth bottlenecks, or even just processes around the use of those applications. So CRM is a basic example where how a team uses a particular CRM system can be increased in terms of operational efficiency by cutting out manual processes or making customizations to that CRM system to fit to the needs of the user. So it's not just about migrating, it's also being able to innovate by enabling AI within your applications, and obviously Azure is a perfect platform for doing so. So how does it look for Azure? So huge amount of growth with Azure. There's over 90,000 subscriptions per month. There's 1.5 million SQL databases running in Azure. Again, as I said, these are stats from 2020, so it's likely to be more than this. You know, there's 500 million active users, 1.5 trillion messages processed for Internet of Things, which again plays into the AI piece. And 777 trillion storage transactions per day, and already over 80% of the Fortune 500 are using Azure. So there's huge growth within Azure, and again, this just sort of fits the mold in terms of moving forward. That the marketplace are really shifting to public cloud and looking for applications that are running within the public cloud. So what does this mean for you? Well, there's a huge opportunity for ISVs to essentially fulfill that cloud appetite in the market for public cloud, whether that's running your applications in Azure from a SaaS perspective, or offering your applications within Azure, that a customer can create an Azure environment and run that application within their Azure environments. So those investments are only going to increase, and there's acceleration already happening in terms of ISV innovation. So banking and finance, healthcare, insurance, and retail are showing massive growth in terms of having applications running in Azure, but also having that ability to innovate within Azure as well. And then your competitors as well. So what are the motivations around your competitors, other ISVs out there? So again, really fitting with this webinar, the highest sort of feedback in terms of why people are moving to SaaS offerings and why people are moving to public cloud SaaS offerings is creating those new opportunities to acquire new customers. So 2/3 of ISVs that were asked as part of this poll came back to say, look, everything we're doing with regards to public cloud is to acquire new customers. And then very closely behind that is obviously the benefits of a recurring revenue stream, you know, whether that's Azure consumption, depending on the partner options that you decide to take, or obviously that recurring revenue stream of a recurring model with regards to your application itself. Again, that fits in with the new consumption model with regards to cloud. So again, your revenue, the way that you charge, or your pricing strategy with regards to the way that you charge for your application, will then fit in with models that the customer is going to be familiar with, because they're having to move to those familiar models with regards to their underlying infrastructure on Azure or wherever it might be within the cloud. And then finally, just a few benefits of sort of cloud delivery. So the benefits to you, there's lower customer adoption costs. A lot of it is cookie cutter approach in terms of plug and play. There's lower cost to serve because you've got the infrastructure benefits of basically not having to manage the elements that Microsoft would manage as part of Azure. And on top of that, they have obviously the huge benefits of economies of scale with regards to having those number of data centers around the globe, and the benefits of obviously having that that architecture under one roof and managed under one roof. And that can lead to 75% reduction in installation time for customers, 30% reduction in your costs, your underlying costs on systems. So whether that's management, whether that's your upfront infrastructure costs, and then also your ongoing customer support costs as well can be reduced. Being able to integrate into new cloud services. So when we get onto the Azure Marketplace, that's a huge benefit with regards to joining applications together. So 50% reduced costs with regards to integrating cloud-based services, because Azure can be used as a platform for that. And then being able to basically use that aggregated data, so actually leveraging that data to again meet the market need of having AI enabled applications that give more than just the base operational purpose of that application, but also giving feedback to that organization in terms of how they use your applications and how they can improve the value of how they use your applications as well. And in terms of ISV benefits, as a overview slide as such, recurring revenues is obviously a massive one. Being able to ensure that you've got recurring revenues, it can transform businesses. I used to work for a CRM provider that grew doubled year on year after we moved to a recurring revenue model with regards to moving the CRM to a cloud-based model. Security and governance, it becomes more of a secure platform when you've got the type of investments that's Microsoft are putting into the security of Azure. So 1 billion a year they spend, which is obviously lots of people have heard of that because they don't shut up about it, but it's a huge and significant investment into security and governance. And it also helps you with regards to being able to approach other verticals. So being able to say to a particular vertical, we are GDPR compliant, we are PCI compliant, your data is HIPAA compliant if you're looking to move into the US markets, for example, purely because Azure is already orchestrated and built with that governance in mind. Accessing new markets, so regionality, being able to sell anywhere in the world because you're able to roll out your application to infrastructure around the world with Azure, and therefore you attract more customers within those new markets. Improve your service satisfaction, focus on what you're good at in terms of focusing on your application and the application support and the development of your application, rather than necessarily focusing on the underlying infrastructure. Therefore, you optimize the infrastructure by working with expert providers such as Cloud Direct, for example, and having the credibility that your infrastructure is run by an expert MSP is a good factor there. And then faster development cycles by obviously gaining that focus. If you focus on your application, then you can focus on how that application evolves and meeting the needs of your customers. So the general benefits to Azure, and again, in case people are just at the very start stages of their Azure journey, improve your cash flow, transitioning from CapEx to OpEx, high flexibility on technology use. You're not stuck into long-term contracts. It's a month-to-month contract with Azure Plan, and obviously it's a consumption-based model, so you're able to upscale and downscale on a monthly basis. So decrease your workload to suit business needs, upscale in times of high demand, but also the automation elements of that scaling is crucial to enabling that customer satisfaction. You're always going to meet the demands of your customers in terms of that automated scaling within Azure, but also you're also able to cap your bills. So you make sure that your costs do not spiral out of control by fixing those scalability rules. And then obviously a key benefit is reallocating internal resources to other business critical projects by freeing up the time and freeing up the cost of resources for your own internal infrastructure. You're able to then put that onto other projects.